Hola clase. And now we have a nice little review of reflexive verbs. How they work, what they look like, and so on and so forth. So let's take a look. Well, here we are with a reflexive verb and a definition. It's used to indicate that the subject does something for or to itself or to himself, herself. And so the word reflects the action of the verb back to the subject. And a good idea of reflexive verbs is looking at a mirror. When you look at yourself at a mirror, the mirror reflects back to you. However, you can turn the mirror a little bit and have it reflect at other people. And you can see other people. That's not reflexive. That doesn't reflect yourself, but other people. That would be non-reflexive. And so, reflexive verbs always use reflexive pronoun. For example, Joaquín se ducha por la mañana. So here's one of the primary examples of a reflexive verb, and that's the verb lavarse, because we wash ourselves, and when we do in Spanish, it's reflexive. But when we wash other things, or maybe even people, like little babies, that's not reflexive. So, note the use of the pronouns. Please make sure you remember that these pronouns are important. Me, te, se, nos, os, se. Remember, usted, él, ella use the same reflexive pronoun, se. Likewise, ustedes, ellos, ellas use the same reflexive pronoun, se. Me lavo, te lavas, se lava, nos lavamos, os laváis, se lavan. So you're going to use regular AR verb endings, but because it's reflexive, you need to use the reflexive pronoun. So how do you know that a verb is reflexive? Well, when you look at the infinitive, if the pronoun se is attached to the infinitive, like lavarse, that's reflexive. That means you need to use those pronouns. And remember, the reflexive pronoun agrees with the subject. So yo takes the me, tú takes the te, él, ella, usted, se, and so on and so forth. Me ducho, me cepillo los dientes, me visto y listo. Ay, los estudiantes siempre se acuestan tarde. So now, where are the reflexive pronouns placed in a sentence? Well, generally, that's the key word, before the conjugated verb. Most of the time it's going to be before the conjugated verb. However, you need to remember when you have infinitives or present participles, you have a choice. They may either be placed before the conjugated verb or attached to the infinitive or the present participle. Look at these examples. You can say, ellos se van a vestir, which means they're going to get dressed. But you can also say, ellos van a vestirse, because you're using the infinitive here. You can attach the se. And it's the same thing. It has the same meaning. They are going to get dressed. And then we have a present progressive. We're using the present participle right there. Nos estamos lavando las manos. So you can put it before the form verb, which is estamos, but you can also attach it because lavando is a present participle, that's the ing. You can attach it by saying estamos lavándonos las manos. That's what we are doing. We are washing our hands. And so it's important to remember whenever you do attach a reflexive pronoun to a present participle, you need to add the accent mark. For example, bañando. Bañando doesn't have an accent, but when you add the reflexive pronoun, you have to put it on the original stress. Bañando, bañando. The original stress is right there over the second A. That's the original stress, no accent. When you add a pronoun, you have to write the accent over the original stress to keep the same stress intact. Same thing with durmiendo. Durmiéndose. You have to write the accent over the original stress, which is right there over the E. That's the original stress, no accent, but whenever you attach a pronoun, you need to have that accent mark. So take a look now at these common reflexive verbs, and a lot of them are actions that we do every day to ourselves. For example, afeitarse, bañarse, cepillarse, despertarse, dormirse, ducharse, lavarse, levantarse. These are actions that we do daily to ourselves. Remember the verb llamarse también. ¿Cómo te llamas? Me llamo Mark. Literally it means I'm called Mark. ¿Cómo te llamas? How are you called? And so we have the rest of these. And as I mentioned before, a lot of verbs that are reflexive, like lavarse, can be non-reflexive, just simply lavar. It depends on where the action is going. If it's reflected back to the subject, then it's reflexive. For example, me lavo la cara. I wash my face. That action goes back to me. But if you say, Lola lava los platos, that action is not reflexive because the action goes to something else. So one more thing, señoritas, that I think you learned last year, and that's parts of the body and clothing are not generally referred to with possessive, like mi sombrero, mis zapatos, mi mano, mi cabeza, but rather with the definite article. For example, la niña se quitó los zapatos. She took off her shoes. And necesito cepillarme los dientes. Instead of saying mis dientes, Spanish prefers to use the definite article. So that wraps up our reflexive verbs. Please make sure that you do the listening and the quiz on Canvas. Gracias.